Right now, as you're watching this, you are almost certainly warm. You probably don't even think about it. There's a thermostat on your wall somewhere, and the second the temperature drops, a machine quietly fixes the problem before your body even registers a complaint. You walk from a heated house into a heated car into a heated office. The coldest part of your entire day might just be the 10 seconds it takes to walk between them. For you, winter is an inconvenience. It's scraping ice off a windshield. It's digging out a heavy jacket. It's complaining that it gets dark too early. But for almost the entire span of human existence, winter wasn't an inconvenience. Winter was a killer. And it didn't come at people with just one weapon. It came with 4 at once. The cold could kill you. Starvation could kill you. Predators could kill you. And the long black nights could break your mind long before any of the others finished the job. So here's the question worth asking. For hundreds of thousands of years, with no furnace, no supermarket, and no walls that actually blocked the wind, how did anyone make it through winter at all? Because they did. Your ancestors walked straight into some of the most punishing environments on Earth and lived to tell about it. And the way they pulled that off is one of the most impressive achievements in our species' history: the cold. Let's start with the most obvious enemy. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. The human body was never built for cold. We evolved on the warm plains of Africa, and biologically, we're still tropical animals. Strip away modern gear and drop a person into freezing conditions, and hypothermia can set in within a matter of hours. Fingers stop working, thinking slows down. Past a certain point, the body simply shuts itself off. No fur, no blubber. No natural insulation of any kind. In terms of raw biology, humans are about as poorly equipped for brutal cold as any large mammal on the planet. And yet, we didn't just survive the cold, we walked straight into it. Early humans pushed north into Ice Age Europe, into Siberia, into places where the temperature falls well below anything a bare human body can handle. So how? Fire was part of the answer, and we'll come back to what fire meant for those endless dark nights. But fire has one big weakness. It only warms the side of you facing it, and the moment you step away to hunt or find more wood, the cold rushes right back in. Fire alone was never going to be enough. What people actually needed was something that carried warmth with them wherever they went. Which brings us to arguably the single most important piece of winter technology our species ever invented: clothing. But not just any clothing. For a long time, the assumption was simple. Cold weather, throw an animal hide over your shoulders, done. And for a while, that's exactly what people did. But a loose hide leaves gaps everywhere. Wind gets in at the sides. Your arms are exposed. It slides right off the moment you move. A loose hide is better than nothing, but in a real winter, better than nothing still isn't enough to keep you alive. The real breakthrough was learning to cut hides into pieces and stitch them into shapes built for the human body. Sleeves, closed seams, garments that sealed a layer of warm air right against the skin no matter how much you moved. That's the difference between wearing a blanket and wearing a coat. But making that leap required a needle, not just any needle. One with a tiny eye for thread. That's a genuinely difficult object to produce by hand. You take a sliver of bone, grind it into a fine point, then carefully drill a hole through it, small enough to stay delicate, strong enough not to snap. Archaeologists have found bone needles like this dating back more than 40,000 years, with some evidence pushing even earlier. These weren't lucky accidents. They were deliberate, carefully made tools crafted by people who knew precisely what they were for. The thread came from the animal too. Tough sinew, pulled from muscle and bone, dried and used to bind hides into something durable. Layer that kind of garment with the fur turned inward, and suddenly a person could stand in temperatures cold enough to kill and stay alive inside their own private pocket of warmth. Sewn clothing wasn't a nice to have. It was the technology that let our species leave the warm continent it evolved in and settle the coldest regions on Earth. Take away the needle and the thread, and there is no human population surviving an Ice Age winter in Siberia. Threat 2, the night. So now you're warm enough to move, work, and hunt, but the light is fading and the temperature keeps dropping. That creates a second problem no coat can solve. You need somewhere to actually spend the night. The obvious answer is a cave. And caves genuinely help. They hold a steady temperature, block the wind, wind and keep the snow off. But here's the part people rarely mention. Good caves are rare. A dry, defensible cave in a sensible spot was hard to find. And if you found one, chances are someone else wanted it too. Most of the time, if you needed shelter, you had to build it yourself. This is where things get genuinely remarkable. At a site called Mizurich in modern-day Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered the remains of dwellings built roughly 15,000 years ago. The surrounding land had almost no timber and almost no stone. So the people there built homes out of the one material available in enormous supply: mammoth bones. They stacked and interlocked the remains of dozens of mammoths into round, dome-shaped structures, hundreds of bones per dwelling, jawbones layered like shingles, massive tusks arched over the doorways. These weren't rushed, disposable shelters. They were serious, engineered constructions designed to hold up through a brutal winter, and they took real planning and real labor to build. Inside, every effort went toward trapping warmth. Floors were lined with care. At a site in South Africa, researchers found evidence of layered grass and leaf bedding dating back a staggering 77,000 years, people making their sleeping spaces more comfortable long before our species had even left Africa. Think about that mammoth bone hut again. Bone doesn't fit together seamlessly. There are gaps everywhere, and every gap is an open door for wind. So people sealed them, layer by layer. Hides were stretched across interior walls and pinned over openings. Blocks of turf were cut and packed against the outer walls. Some groups even piled snow against their shelters, since a thick layer of snow is actually a surprisingly good insulator. It traps air, and trapped air holds heat. Bit by bit, the wind ran out of places to get in. A shelter stopped being just walls and became a full system, one that kept people alive through nights that should have finished them off. But a well-sealed shelter creates a new problem. Keeping a fire going through an entire winter takes a huge amount of fuel, and gathering fuel means someone has to keep stepping back out into the cold again and again all season. You're tied to that shelter. You can't just wander off, which means your food supply has to already be close by or already stored. Threat 3, hunger, which leads to the third threat, and maybe the deadliest one of all: hunger. Here's a piece of winter that modern life has completely erased from memory. In winter, the land stops producing food. Plants die back or go dormant. Berries disappear. Roots become nearly impossible to dig out of frozen soil. Many animals move on, go into hiding, or grow thin and desperate themselves. For a hunter-gatherer, winter isn't just cold. It's the season when the earth itself stops feeding you, and that turns survival into pure arithmetic. You have to gather enough during the warm months to carry the whole group through months when almost nothing new shows up. So ancient people became experts in food preservation, using methods that still work today. The first was drying. Slice meat thin and let it dry in the sun or over low smoke, and you pull the moisture out of it. No moisture, no rot. Dried meat could last for months, and smoke added a second layer of preservation on top. A rack of drying meat in autumn was, in every practical sense, a group's insurance policy against starving by late winter. The second method turned the cold itself into a tool. Frozen ground works like a natural freezer. Dig a pit into the permafrost, pack it with meat from a good kill, and the cold keeps it edible for a remarkably long time. Winter, the very thing trying to starve people, became the thing preserving the food that kept them alive. But the single most valuable food in winter wasn't meat exactly. It was fat. When your body is burning enormous amounts of energy just to stay warm, lean meat alone doesn't cut it. Fat is the most energy-dense food source there is, and in deep winter, it was worth more than almost anything else. Ancient people rendered animal fat into a stable, storable form, and combined it with dried meat into a dense, long-lasting ration, packed with calories in a small, portable package. In a season where every calorie mattered, fat was often the difference between a group that made it to spring and one that didn't. Threat 4, the dark. So now you're warm, sheltered, and stocked with food. You've beaten 3 of winter's 4 death sentences. But there's a fourth one, and it's the one people rarely think about because it doesn't attack the body, It attacks the mind, the darkness. The further north you go, the shorter the days get and the longer the nights stretch. You might have only a few usable hours of daylight, followed by 15 or 16 hours of cold darkness with nothing to do. You can't travel far. You can't hunt effectively at night. You're stuck in a small space with the same handful of people night after night after night. That kind of confinement, that constant waiting, can wear a person down in a way that cold and hunger never quite manage. But here's what ancient people did with those long dark hours. They didn't just sit through them, they filled them completely. This was the time for every task that didn't need daylight or good weather. Sitting by the fire, repairing tools, shaping new spear points, mending clothing, twisting plant fiber into cord, carving. The long night wasn't wasted time, it was workshop time. The hours a group used to get ready for the moment the weather finally broke. And it was more than labor. Around that winter fire in the dark is where people talked, where elders passed everything they knew down to the young, where the same stories got told again and again, carrying a group's memory and knowledge forward across generations. A huge share of what we now call human culture, myths, songs, shared knowledge, was shaped in exactly these conditions. A 2014 study of conversations among the Jew Hoangsi people of the Kalahari found that after dark, talk shifted heavily away from practical matters and towards stories, song, and ritual. Firelight itself seemed to change what people were willing to share. People huddled together against the darkness, keeping each other warm, keeping each other sane, keeping each other human, until the light came back. Winter didn't just test the body, it built the mind. The bigger picture. Step back and look at the whole thing, and something remarkable comes into focus. Winter didn't just get survived, winter shaped us. The pressure of the cold is what pushed people to invent fitted, sewn clothing. The scarcity of caves is what pushed them to invent real architecture. The seasonal gap in food is what pushed them to invent preservation and storage. And the long, dark nights account for a massive share of where human culture itself was born. Nearly every technology that let our species spread into every climate on Earth was forged in the struggle to survive the cold. The harshest season on the planet didn't just fail to wipe us out, it made us far more capable than we had any right to be. So here's the full picture. Winter attacked with 4 weapons: the cold, and humans answered with fire and fitted sewn clothing; the night, and they answered with building out of whatever the land gave them, even the bones of mammoths; the hunger, and they answered by drying, freezing, and rendering food into stores that could carry a group for months; and the darkness, and they answered by turning the longest, coldest nights into a workshop and a classroom, the place where human culture itself began to take shape. Every single winter was a test, and the great many people failed it. Survival was never guaranteed, it was earned every single year through preparation, skill, and sheer stubbornness. And now look at you. You turn a dial and the room warms up. You open a door and there's food that grew on the other side of the planet in the dead of December. You complain that the sun sets too early from inside a house your ancestors couldn't have imagined, having never once felt the specific dread of watching the first snowfall and wondering if you'd stored enough to see spring. You don't survive winter anymore. You barely notice it. And that's not because winter got any gentler. It's because 100,000 years of humans freezing, starving, and huddling together in the dark slowly figured out how to beat it, one invention at a time.